Hurricane Irma happened August 30th, 2017 through September 16th, 2017. I will be discussing not only what places were hit, but all the damages that Hurricane Irma did. From flooding the streets to making islands uninhabitable, all this damage increases the amount of money and time it will take to repair and restore these countries back to where they were.
Good evening, I'm Anthony Mason. President Trump declared an emergency today in Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, all threatened by the most powerful Atlantic hurricane ever seen. Irma, a Category 5, has already turned deadly on the islands of the Caribbean. The National Hurricane Center says chances have grown for a direct hit on Florida, possibly as soon as the weekend.
The image in front of you is Hurricane Irma's path of destruction. It started in Barbuda and ended in Florida. The first place we will talk about is Barbuda. This Caribbean island was the first place devastated by Hurricane Irma. Barbuda was evacuated for about 3 weeks, and this was the first time no one has lived on the island for more than 300 years. The estimated damage and rebuild cost is around $300 million, and this will take about many months and possibly years for the island to get back on its feet and where it usually is. The second place that was hit by Hurricane Irma were the British Virgin Islands, which took place on September 6th. The hurricane destroyed much of the infrastructure and the plumbing of the Virgin Islands. With that said, 80% of the whole island was destroyed by Irma. This meant it left around 40,000 people homeless. The cost to repair the island would cost around $20 million, and it would take many months of rebuilding to bring it back to where it was.
First, Tony DeCopel in Puerto Rico.
This wall of wind and rain is only getting worse tonight as hundreds of Puerto Ricans are already in shelters and more than 200 tourists from this hotel have been evacuated out of their rooms and into a ballroom where they're expecting a very long night in the storm. Residents were warned to brace for the worst as the strongest winds in a century lashed Puerto Rico. Irma has already left plenty of evidence of its record-setting strength. Wind gusts topped 200 miles per hour, knocking out power as buildings collapsed and debris flew.
The third place hit by Hurricane Irma was Puerto Rico. Hurricane Irma did not hit Puerto Rico dead on, but went to the north of the island. However, this still caused severe damage, such as flooding to many houses and leaving around 1 million people without power. It is estimated that it will cost the island $35 million to repair all the houses and the electrical grid. This is not including the tourism that will also fail and hurt their economy. The fourth major place affected by Hurricane Irma was the island of Cuba. The hurricane swept the north coast of Cuba. It hit the eastern tip to Havana in the west. 10 people lost their lives in the storm, and many houses were lost and damaged by Hurricane Irma. Irma will have a big effect on the tourism of the country, which brings in around $3 billion a year. Hurricane Irma did around $100 million of damage to Cuba, and would cost a lot more money and time to rebuild the economy and all the buildings lost in Cuba. The last place hit by Hurricane Irma was Florida and the Florida Keys. It will take a few years before the true cost of the damage of Hurricane Irma is revealed. But what we currently know is that Hurricane Irma is blamed for the loss of $2 billion for tourism, and the hurricane winds alone cost Florida around $19.4 billion. The flooding will cost around $9 to $16 billion as well. The total estimated damage is between $42.5 to $65 billion. Overall, Hurricane Irma was one of the most damaging hurricanes in the last century. Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Harvey had very high total damage costs. They estimated that both of these hurricanes combined costed around $150 to $200 billion. This also accounts for all the lost productivity that these hurricanes had, such as tourism, farming, and small businesses in the Caribbean and in the United States. In the end, Hurricane Irma was a catastrophic storm that started on the west coast of Africa and ended up hitting the east coast of America. This Category 5 storm was one of the most powerful and feared storms that has arrived in the last century.